Case zero is not always where your first cluster is. Case zero can be, it's obviously before in time, but it may be in another place. So that's why you have to keep an open mind. All hypotheses are on the table. You start with an open mind. And you follow the evidence and you follow the data. And if you follow the data and the science, you will find, hopefully, the point at which the disease crossed the species barrier. But I will remind you that it has taken decades in other diseases to do that. It took years to do it in the case of MERS. It's never been fully established in the case of SARS in terms of the actual event that crossed the animal-human barrier. And it does prove very, very difficult to find that initiation point where the disease crossed the animal-human species barrier. But it is important that we find that, because as long as the animal-human breach has not been discovered, there's always a chance that that barrier can be breached again. And that's why we always, in Ebola, in Nipah, in many, many other diseases, we always seek to find the case zeros in order to find that breach in the barrier. And we are at greater and greater risk around the world. And let's face this, we live on a planet in which we're adding 1 billion people a decade. We are densely packed. We're exploiting pristine environments. We are creating and driving the ecologic pressure that is creating the risks that are driving the risk at the animal-human species barrier. And there are so many people out there working in the ecologic movement who are seeing this each and every day. We are pressuring the biologic system. We live in a biome. We live in a world of biology, and we are actively creating the pressures that are driving the breaches of those barriers, and we need to do better at managing the risks associated with that.
I have a message for a very special young person. It's my son Tom is 15 years old today.
Oh,
it's his
happy
birthday. So happy birthday, Tom! And a fine youth he is. And in reflecting on, I just think that young people, younger adults, they're the engine of society's ideas. They're the engine of innovation. They don't believe any idea is crazy. They're willing to try anything once. And so I think we need to leverage and sort of amplify the creativity of youth and be very careful. We've seen some of the rhetoric in the last number of days, sort of, oh, it's the young people's fault. It's nobody's fault. The pandemic is not the fault of young people. It's not the fault of old people. It's a virus that's spreading in our society. And once it can enter and establish itself in any geographic area or in any age group, it represents a threat to all areas and all age groups. So we all need to play our part, as Maria said. But I think young people need to, as Maria said, engage, become part of the solution, drive the solution. I said it here before. I think future is in the hands of the youth. It's your world, and you need to get on with taking control of this virus, just as we're trying. And that. And I think there's nothing more infectious than the hope of youth. There is nothing that enlivens and creates that energy in community or in a household than young people and just doing what they do. And I just think that joy and that enthusiasm for life is what we need now, and that hope, and just being kind and not participating in the negative stuff. It's a time for kindness. People are tired, people are isolated, people are nervous. People are unsure. Everyone's a little bit more tense than they were before. And it's amazing just how a kind word, ask people how they're doing, just ask people how they're feeling, and more empathy with other people in your own house, in your own community, in your school. And know that, you know, there are others who may be in a much more difficult situation than you. And there are people who are isolated by, you know, maybe they're migrants, maybe they've got other situations in their life. They're already isolated, they're already feeling excluded, and then COVID-19 has created more isolation. So it's even more important for that to be the case. And Maria was talking about volunteering as well. And we've seen medical students and student nurses go in essentially into the front lines. We've seen a lot of college students volunteer to become contact tracers. So it depends what age group you're in, but there's a lot of younger adults who have qualifications and don't necessarily have access to jobs right now, and there's lots that can be done in volunteering. In fact, we could do with a few interns over here if anyone is interested in working 22 hours a day. Send your CV. But I think for everybody, and as I said, there's nothing that lights up the life of an older person in our society than a visit from a young person, a phone call, Facebook, text. And maybe if everyone who's looking at this right now could just right now stop, send a text message to some person that they think needs to just contact.
Yeah.
We could make a difference right now.
Yep.
If everyone just did that. And I think that is very important, and it's not to be underestimated. We all get through crisis through solidarity. It's not just in the movies, not just the way it works. You stick together, you get through things together, and this is a time when we do that. And no one better than young people to bring that joy and that sense of community to life.
You know, Alec, just to say, we're all in this together, you know.
This has been the greatest shutdown in education in history, in terms of days and hours lost in formal education. And it's a great credit to the schools and the teachers and the students who've managed to keep going with virtual education, but that has not been possible for everyone. So clearly there's a lot of catching up to do on the education side. That's for sure. And again, the economic losses will go on in the sense that there will be an after effect. And it's tough enough. I mean, if I'm a young person now coming out of college, it's already tough enough to get a job, get an internship, you know, no job, no experience, no job. So even getting experience when everything is shut down. So it is an extra worry, and things are going to recover. We hope they'll recover more quickly than slowly, but it's an extra strain on particularly on younger people, because while our lives, I think, over the last half century have become in general more prosperous, they've become more uncertain in that sense. There's no guarantee of a job, there's no guarantee of an income. It's the top 1% may live in luxury, but for most ordinary people it's about getting a job, getting on in life, and there's that degree of uncertainty, and there are no jobs for life. So there's a lot of uncertainties out there, but and COVID and the disruption that COVID has caused is a negative thing. On the positive side, I think there's great hope. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I sense a new energy for a different way of living. And I think this is where young people really have the power to change things. Is this the world we want? We want a world where we're constantly worried about jobs, worried about our incomes, worried about paying our debts, constantly trying to gather wealth, constantly trying to get into that top 1% while many others fall into poverty, a world in which we exploit the planet, we exploit other human beings in order to get ahead, and to use that terrible term, or do we see a future that's a bit more balanced, where life and love and community are a bit more balanced, where our relationship with nature and the planet is a bit more sustainable, and where we don't have to strive so hard for attainment and wealth, but where we can learn and grow more together as a society. And I get a sense, maybe, as I said, maybe I'm wrong, but I get a sense that young people don't want the world we're giving them. They want something different, and I think they want something a whole lot better. And I wish to God we could give it to them, but I think maybe the young people are going to have to take it themselves.